Good morning. I've been teaching and studying American higher education for almost 20 years, and I find that almost every single day I learn something new from a student. I will never forget the day almost 2 years ago. I was a new professor at Temple University, the public university of the city of Philadelphia. And I was sitting in my office when the door opened, and a young woman walked in. She said she had an appointment because she had something to tell me. I had no idea what was coming next. And then this 20-year-old neuroscience major, who could have been my daughter, looked me in the eye and said that she'd run out of food to eat. That while she had grown up in a family that valued education, and she had done the FAFSA, and she had gotten financial aid, and the first few years of college were okay. Eventually, those funds had run short, tuition had gone up, the price of room and board had risen, and her family just didn't have it anymore. And when she ran out of money, she was too ashamed, and frankly didn't want to lean on her mom and dad, so she didn't tell anyone. And instead, she went to the nearby grocery store, and she began stealing food. She told me that her favorite thing to steal, were avocados. If there's anything more middle class, I'm not sure what it is. It's 2018, and the higher education innovation that I decided to spend my time with you on today is food. It is a remarkable thing that food insecurity in higher education is something that we have to talk about as college leaders, but we do. I'm first and foremost a researcher, and for a decade now, my team and I have been trying to find out how many students are affected by these challenges. There is no federal data set to turn to. So we go to you, the college leaders, and we ask to survey your students. And we have found that more than 1/3 of university students and more than half of the nation's community college students are dealing with food insecurity. This does not mean that they don't know about ramen. This does not mean that they haven't heard of a dollar menu. This means something much more serious. This means they miss meals. This means they lose weight. This means that they think on a daily basis about choosing between the materials they need for their classes and whether they're going to have something to eat that night. And it goes even further. We spend so much time talking about elite spaces, but real college is not marked by climbing walls or lazy rivers or fancy dormitories. Real college today is marked by housing insecurity. Homelessness, something that we know happens in K-12 education, rates of which are rising in the population around the country, are now affecting our students as well. Our studies show that 14% of the nation's community college students have experienced homelessness in the last year. And I'm excluding couch surfing. Couch surfing, which makes up more than 50% of youth homelessness in the United States, not even included in these counts. And this is not only a problem at the nation's community colleges, this is also a problem at our universities. Why is this happening? How can this be happening? Well, it's because of what I call the new economics of college. And the new economics of college, well, it goes way beyond tuition. We spend so much time talking about whether tuition is going up, whether it's frozen, whether that makes college affordable. But the vast majority of the cost of attending college faced by students in the United States are things like books and supplies, room and board, medical expenses, transportation, clothing. We deride students who buy clothes, but how many of us would teach a classroom full of naked students? This is actually a problem. These people can't afford to do laundry. Deans around the country are trying to figure out how to remove a student who smells from the classroom so that they can offer to wash their clothes. Families of today's college students are more economically strapped than ever before. Their incomes are not rising as our prices rise. Their incomes are stagnant or even declining. The safety net, which has caught many people very effectively when they started to fall, has been shredded. I know there are people, even in this audience, who when they were in college struggled. And you probably turned to food stamps, and you should. There's nothing to be ashamed of to be on food stamps in order to get a college degree that generates an enormous ROI. But these days, food stamps are very hard to get. You have to work at least 20 hours a week if you don't have a child, and in most parts of the country, college doesn't count as work. And then let's talk about work. I worked my way through college. I bet you did too. I believe in it. But work doesn't even work anymore. Our college students are competing with part-time workers who don't have class schedules. People who the employers prefer because they're not going to say, well, my schedule's changed because it's a new semester. The real value of the minimum wage continues to decline. The value of the tipped minimum wage, which I relied on as a waitress in college, has also declined. And the last thing, the important thing, is that outside of the top 10% of higher education, our institutions are deeply underfunded. On a per-student basis, the average college student is supported today by about $1,000 less than they were a decade ago. So we have underfunded students from under-resourced families in underfunded schools. And this adds up to a crisis of basic needs insecurity that is affecting their academics. It is no surprise to you, I'm sure, that when students don't have their food secured and their housing secured, that their grades are lower. But let's flip that. Let's look at those students who we're also worried about, the ones who aren't making it in college. We find that of those community college students who people say maybe they don't belong, they're earning D's and F's and things like that, we think they don't belong there. Well, it turns out that about half of those students don't have their basic needs met. How many of us have thought, instead of sending an academic advisor to talk to them about their math class, that we might give them a meal plan? Former foster youth, veterans, LGBTQ students, these students are all overrepresented. Some of the most vulnerable populations in society are affected by these challenges, and we have to address them if we want them to get to degree completion. Now, food pantries are on many of your campuses. The College and University Food Bank Alliance opened 5 years ago and had only 12 members. Today it has more than 600. Food pantries are a charitable response, and there's nothing wrong with them. But you have to understand that no one has ever been prevented from becoming food insecure because of a campus food pantry. We have to be proactive. If we want our students to focus on school, then we need to provide things like food scholarships, which are now being offered at Houston Community College, given up front as a student enters school so that they will never become food insecure. We need to go beyond financial aid and offer students access to the SNAP program on our campus with assistance in filling out the paperwork. We should consider expanding a common sense program like the National School Lunch Program. There is such thing as free lunch in the United States, and it keeps school children in school and learning every day. Magically, somehow it expires when they turn 18 and go on to the 13th year of education. We together can change that. Emergency housing, emergency aid, all of these things are tools that you can deploy to help your students. And when you do, you need to think prevention. We have to do this work because we are failing students in such a way that they now believe they caused the problem. They believe that they are invisible to you. They believe that they don't deserve to be there. But these are some of the most hardworking and talented students you will find because they are so resilient, they stay in school, even while going home to a shelter at night. Yesterday, I had the opportunity to go to Lehman College, and I sat with a young woman who sleeps in a shelter every single night while pursuing her degree. For the last 2 years, I worked with a woman at the Community College of Philadelphia, 36 years old, with a 9-year-old child, and they slept end to end on a couch. Did Mary Baxter belong in college? Yes. Once we stabilized her housing, she managed to complete a degree in behavioral health. She walked across the stage 2 weeks ago. She is more than capable if her basic needs are secured. We can change these things. We can do it with evidence-based policies, practices, and by changing our public perception of who a college student is. There are no kids here. These people have been adultified from a very young age. We have put them through too much. All they're asking for is our support in getting college degrees. I've been working on this for a very long time, and I believe we all need a lot more support in higher education, so I am happy to announce that this fall at Temple University, in a public institution in a city where child poverty is rising every single day, we are launching the Hope Center for College, Community, and Justice. We are your partners in this work. We don't care what kind of institution you are or how much wealth you have. We want to join you in supporting every single student so that they too can get the degrees they deserve. Thank you very much.